All right, folks. Well, I'll take it from the top again. For those who might have joined in the last few minutes, hi everyone, and welcome to Sheeva.AI's end of year webinar as we gaze into our crystal ball predictions for the vehicle location market in 2022. My name is Trevor Kerwin. I am Sheeva.AI's energy and smart cities analyst. Again, just a quick note for all of you. Thank you for this is our last event for the year, and we appreciate everybody who's joined over the past year for our monthly webinar series here. So thanks for taking the time to join us, and what we hope is going to be a lively, engaging group with our cast here today, talking about where we see the future going in the vehicle location market for next year in various verticals, and where we think the growth will be, and what the things we are looking at that maybe you haven't been thinking about. So we're looking forward to a lively discussion. A little bit about our agenda today, Jack. For those of you who haven't joined us here before, asking a question is pretty straightforward on the Zoom app you've got right now. There's a Q&A button. You go and jump in there and drop us a question. Everybody on the panelists and the moderator will see it. Don't worry about being muted. All attendees are muted, and it is recorded. Yes, we typically make it available within 2 days on our social channels. So if you want to send a link to a colleague or whatever that might not have been able to attend today, by all means, you'll have the resources available. Jack, next slide. And today's is going to be a little bit different. Normally with these events, we have a bigger discussion, but because these are predictions, we're just going to have the whole team with us today jump in and give their ideas on, give their opinions on it. Of course, as always, this is an interactive event. You guys are, the audience is a big part of it. So we would love to have you feel free to chime in on any prediction in the Q&A one. Again, in real time. You don't have to wait for the Q&A section. Or if you have a prediction yourself, by all means, let us know in the Q&A window, and we'd love to tackle it in real time. Jack, next slide. And so without further ado, let's talk about our folks joining us here today. And first, Ray Cotto is our program manager and systems engineer at Hagiwara America, an important partner for us here. And also joining us is Reg Snodgrass, founder and managing partner of 505 BC, a VC and consultancy firm. And Paul Cowan, head of business and marketing for Sheeva.AI. I'm just going to go around and maybe everybody give a few seconds about themselves, just to give us some context to why you're here today. Just 30 seconds about your background. So Kata-san, maybe we'll start with you.
Hi everyone, nice meeting you. My name is Ray Kato from Hagiwara America. I'm working for the automobile industry in a tier 1 and working with OEM for more than 20 years. So I'd like to share the kind of new trend, or what some OEM thought, and that's a great opportunity. So it's nice meeting you.
Thank you very much, Kata-san. Reg, you, a little bit about your background. Reg, I think you're muted. I think you may be muted there, Reg.
Oh, there. Sorry about that. Hey guys, really nice to meet you. 505 VC is a early stage consulting and venture firm that focuses on market mapping and intelligence for our founders, and then we, go out, raise money, and conquer the universe. So I'm glad to be here. This is an exciting topic for me, and I love the team. I haven't been part of you guys for a long time.
Awesome. And Paul, you're up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm Paul Callan. So I head up business development and marketing efforts for Sheeva. My background and before Sheeva is really steeped very deeply in mobile. I've been was in the mobile space since probably around 2002. So a lot of experience having worked with wireless carriers, launching products, launching games, actually doing a lot of advertising, working a lot with data across the mobile ecosystem. There's a lot of parallels and just amazing crossover with connected vehicles. I'm looking forward to our talk.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys. And so some very quick rules about today, because it is a little bit different format. I'm going to be walking us through our predictions that we've got. We've got 8 of them today. And then I'll be throwing it to one of you guys to take the lead on it. But I would love to have all three of you chime in on each one. We'll kind of go around as a round robin. And so, time is right. Let's fire up the Zoom smoke machine and get you ready for the crystal ball, and we're off to prediction number one. So, number one, might seem a little self-serving, but in-vehicle transactions, we see them growing quite quickly. So most companies switching to in-app payments see complex problems. They need universal contactless payments via location. In 2019, the contactless payments accounted for about 55% of all point-of-sale purchases, whether it's RFID or NFC. At that point, we were seeing the in-vehicle transaction market hitting around 500 billion in over 600 million connected cars. I know that those numbers seem enormous, but we see that happening by 2030, by the end of the decade. Kata-san, we'll start with you on this. What do you think about this, those numbers, and where this space is going?
So as you can see, considering about like COVID-19, again, obviously the contactless payment is much more like common and popular, but it seems like tier one and OEM, like kind of a vehicle side is not quite ready to do that. But there's no kind of like a time to like prepare like for the like a new vehicle. So I think the OEM or tier one are really considering how to quickly launch like a system or service for these kind of like things supporting from vehicle side as well. That's like I got from the like our clients like in automobile industry. So that's about it right now.
Great, and thank you very much, Reg. What's your idea on this?
Oh, I think we are one killer use case away from a watershed moment before this is a norm. It's and it's where is that watershed moment? When is it going to happen? I do think like if you were to Google or turn the radio on, all you hear are chip shortage, chip shortage, chip shortage, chip shortage. That is going to impact the revenue of these larger corporations. They have to find other sources of revenue. I'll go back to this probably a lot during the day, but it's when you look at in-app vehicle transaction or the digitization of the vehicle, right? Which is really what we're talking about. That digitization, the pressure on the OEMs to hit revenue numbers in the next year without vehicles is going to be crazy. Everyone's going to be desperate for that. So where's the money going to come from? Finance, digital, in-car payments. So there's a lot of pressure that's going to be put on this, towards the end of the year, where we will see somebody will push through a watershed moment. That's what we're going to be looking for.
Paul, that's great insight. Paul, what do you think? Do you see that watershed moment coming?
I do. As a matter of fact, self-serving, as you might have mentioned earlier, being at Sheeva.AI, that's where I see it going. We do enable auto payments, but it's as Reg says, a watershed moment, and I do think that you're seeing an extension of what everyone's experienced during COVID. They like the contactless payments. So they like, you get addicted to having that one element of any grudge purchase taken out of your steps that you have to perform. So if you think about getting fuel and you don't have to even pull your phone out, it's just paid for you. That's really attractive. You start expecting that everywhere. You expect to be able to do Apple or Google Pay when you walk into a store. I think you will have that tipping point where people start looking for being able to make payments just automatically from within their car, for sure.
Fantastic.
Trevor, before COVID, anecdotally, like I had my phone. I never wanted to use it for payments. It just felt cumbersome. Now I'm annoyed if all of a sudden I have to key in on the keypad. Right? It's like, wait, I got to touch a keypad now. My phone's not good enough for you. I got to use my phone and a keypad. And that's annoying to me. That it's just blew my mind the other day. And we're heading towards like, that little BAS diffusion, innovation, imitation. The imitation elements are right for this model right now. We're just little bits of innovation will have huge market swings. And that's where vehicle commerce is today.
Right. It's the rapid adoption but consumer behavior is actually it's changing quite rapidly. So yeah, fantastic, guys. Well then, great guys. This is a great start. And so let's go on to prediction number 2. So our prediction number 2 is QSRs, quick service restaurants. They're going to wind up being, our days of growing up with the drive-through as innovation. It's going to looking like more and more like it's drive up versus drive-through. This may be a behavior we're going to see extending in the future. That's permanently one of those things that perhaps COVID times goosed it, but it's going to be the norm perhaps going forward. This is our prediction. Pre-COVID, about 70% of quick service restaurants orders were drive-through. During the coronavirus times, it was up to 90%, of course, because people either weren't allowed in or you couldn't go in, or you didn't want to go in. And so this prompting quicker QSR adoption of mobile ordering, which is kind of one of the new interfaces, with expectations that it becomes the main method of ordering in the future. Preference for mobile ordering to pickup, for customers to do pickup jumped over 24% from 2020 to 2021. Not surprising given the coronavirus impacts, and also just out of frustration, it was compensating for clogged drive-through lanes, which was the old way of doing that. Not having to go into the store attempt to get served. Some QSRs are redesigning for even more of that, or to be redesigning for more, rather than that just sort of saved counter space that we saw pop up during coronavirus where you picked up your orders. They're actually redesigning their footprint, and some of their locations actually becoming an entirely mobile order and picking up. So Paul, I'll start with you on this one. Where do you what do you think about this prediction in this space?
Well, I think it's spot on, and I'm one of those people doing more food delivery and food pickup. And we've seen it already. We've seen several of the QSRs kind of adapt to a different way, and they're seeing higher throughput. So if they're able to get somebody to get the order in ahead of time, even if it's impulse order, and that's that is really what drives most drive-through, most fast food is impulse. You're out and about and you suddenly realize, I'm hungry. Let's grab something quick, especially if you've been out drinking or something. But you look at it and you're able to get a much higher throughput if you're just doing more of the pickup. So the order comes in, they're on their way, they pick it up, and then they move through. They're not spending that moment waiting in the line trying to figure out what they want to order. I do think that's going to pick up more steam. We've seen several of the fast food restaurants do it already. Some of them, as you mentioned, were redesigning their footprint, so they'll have even have a lane specifically for that. I think you will definitely see more of it.
Fantastic. Kata-san, what do you think about that?
And again, in a previous topic, as Reg mentioned, so again, from the OEM or tier 1 side, they try to generate additional income or sales, and this is one of the big opportunity for them as well. But again, it seems like they for the OEM tier 1 side is not completely ready to do that. But that's why they are asking me a question about a possible possible technology or services, but that's about it. And there's a lot of question or support a question to do POC. But again, I can't just still expect who will win, but it's kind of really a really big chance for sure tier 1 and or OEM.
Fantastic. Thanks. Interesting point. And Reg, what do you see for this space?
Oh man, to go back to dating and a dating app we did a long time ago with Scout. We had a lot of users, whatever. What was the most interesting part about that was extending your dating pool away from bars and clubs into your home so that you could actually engage that. That's what's happened to these QSR restaurants, right? All of a sudden, the restaurant has extended into your home. Now people like that, right? They the same issue that we had with dating is going to be the same issues that you have. It's with quality, right? It's with quality, it's with efficiency. It's so funny, right, that there's these same correlations. But I go into this, right? When you think about queuing, and then even you think about the rails that the queuing rests on and how much revenue exists on those rails. Imagine if all of like the money that went to Apple Pay all of a sudden went to a different digitized platform to do this extended kitchen environment for all these people, right? You're gonna have better efficiency, you're gonna have better timing, but also all the money rests in that layer. And so you'll see a lot more development here. It'll become a battleground. Who owns that layer of revenue for this extended kitchen? Who can deliver it more efficiently? Right? Right now, if you walk to any restaurant in San Francisco, there's a big queue. And there's a queue specifically for Uber Eats, Postmates. The restaurants have already evolved, right? And so the next level is, how do you get that next layer of quality, efficiency? You know, I think it is in this car platform type there, but who cares what I care about? The revenue's there. That's where the money is. So the digitization, again, back, you know, all of these pieces, you know, people are going to want that money.
Great, fantastic, guys. And just a quick note here, just to let everybody in the audience know, again, if you've got a prediction in your mind from what you've seen so far, feel free to drop it in the Q&A window. If you got any questions in real time, we have some space set aside at the end to tackle audience input. So we look forward to handling it there. But right now, on to prediction number 3. Right, and this, what we're seeing here is big growth in what we're dubbing CRM 3.0 with location-based real-time customer data. This is the dawn of the use of more precise location of customers to unlock a new set of real-time data for, you know, big CR firms, whether it's Salesforce or Zoho or whoever. You know, we're calling it CRM 3.0 as a placeholder way of saying, or as a term of art, after the first generation of CRM, which was effectively, you know, the original Salesforce, like a complete database of your client data, to the second generation, which has now been a lot of adding layers of operational data to help predict and direct the relationship, the customer relationship a little bit more. But now we're moving it even sort of further up the information pipeline to say, okay, where is the customer in real time, and where can we see, you know, what are they? The prediction gets better and better, of course, with the analysis going forward, and we're getting into a new predictive relationship with end customers. Reg, maybe I'll throw this to you to start. But you know, what do you think about you know, CRM following us around?
You know, I mean, I do. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do as a human race. I mean, we're going to be tracked, right? I mean, I built a location-based dating app in 2007, right? So I've always been kind of aware of this privacy issue versus customer need issue and customer satisfaction issue, right? All these things are there, right? I do think we're a lot more aware with the privacy side of things. So I think there'll be a lot of opt-in opportunities. I think opt-in will be kind of the future. There'll be shadow matching, right, on the back end where they'll still know what we do. That's unfortunate, but that's just there. What I like about where we're going with this is, right, if you look, you know, there are these pyramids out there where the lower layer is data, the next layer is information, the next layer is theories, rules, almost like a pyramid. And then after you get and establish theories and rules off your data, your information, your theories, you get to your rules, you get to actual intelligence, right? And we're coming to the stage where these older incumbents are managing a lot of these lower level data and information platforms. And so the new platforms are actually taking advantage of insights, data, the rules, and building like real genuine customer experiences, right? That's how this market always rolls. It's always, you know, people imitate a lot of stuff, then these little bits of innovation that shift the market over time. And this is where we are. I mean, it's going to be fascinating. I do think we'll see some acquisitions in the space around it. I don't, there's a lot of, you know, big money looking at where the future of this technology is going to go. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're going to see in the near future is as these things start coming out. It's more about what is the receptive customer experience versus where am I going? It's like, what's going to receive me when I get there? That's what's being developed right now. And that's what this CRM 3.0 is, having an intelligent layer that allows the customer to be satisfied on the reception of the end of their journey, right? The better more intelligent we are at that, that's the next wave. It's not about getting you from point A to point B. It's what do we have for you when you're there?
And that's great. And kind of something from Huggerwire's perspective, like this is kind of a new a new leading edge, I guess, right? Like, what do you think about how the impact of this?
So excuse me. So again, so this like a kind of location based CRM, including if you use like Google Map for the kind of navigation, then they have already their own kind of things, and based on the location, they will like notice something. And sometimes you park like somewhere, then the pop-up came up like you park a certain place, and those things like already there's existing like a background in for example by like a Google. But on to consider about that for the OEM or tier one, I don't know they're happy or not. Those like all like location data is kind of like going to the cloud to the like a big like IT company. So I can see the kind of battle or what they want, what like tier one or OEM wants to do for that. So that's kind of like an interesting like things like next year. And I don't think that automobile industry itself can figure out where they have to go, but definitely there's some kind of like a battle or like collaboration with those like kind of platformer and like a car maker side as well.
Right, fantastic. Paul?
Yeah, I think this is spot on. In the past year, you saw Caterpillar's their profits they hit record profits even with labor issues, and a lot of that was all around the investment they made into digital. They have a little more of an advantage because their customer base is very specific on what they're doing, and they have a really big reach. But you just also saw Ford announced Visor, which is built on Salesforce, and they're targeting small businesses specifically around CRM with automotive. And the catch with that is that's just on Ford. You really do, for this to take off, you need something that's going to be cross-platform, or you're just going to end up with flavors of it for each OEM. But I do think that's coming. The location, as was just mentioned, we're already doing it. We're saying, when I'm using a parking app to pay for parking right now, they know where I am. When I'm using Google Maps to go somewhere, they know where I am. When I'm ordering DoorDash, the location is just part of my life and it's part of what's going on. I think that's really going to be the next big step. So calling it CRM 3.0 is perfect. I do believe that's where it's going.
Paul, and I know we're pressed for time, but this is really, really important, right? And I can't remember if it was 2018 that I was at CES, and I was looking into that type of technology, and I met with the engineers building the Caterpillar weed finder image recognition tech, and it wasn't a real product. They were talking about it to the analysts and everything, but I talked to the side group and team, and it was kind of a boondoggle that they were testing, where they were using Google APIs, right, in order to produce a really lightweight POC. And at the show, all the analysts went crazy about it. I doubt it's like a tiny group now, but I think that that's really, really important for us to understand, right? That from a tiny POC, they were able to capture the imagination and built a huge strategy out of that. And I was just at CES, and I tell you, it was not like a deep thing. Maybe they had some idea behind it, but that team that was there, it wasn't an EVP with $1 billion budget.
Got it. Well, thank you very much, guys, for that. And great. On to our almost at the midway point here. On to prediction number 4. So this is about, again, a little jumping off the QSR thing idea as well. Location tech will continue to drive curbside retail, though not for the reason you may think. Now, a lot of people will see this and go, oh, yeah, okay, another consumer behavior altered by coronavirus. But honestly, it's booming for a safety reason. It's not for the proximity reason that it was before. Investment bank Cowen predicted curbside pickup would grow from 15% of consumers to 25% by the end of last year. There's been some argument over whether that number actually got hit or not, depending on how you analyzed what curbside was. But some have thought it fell short of that. But you've seen in the news here in the Bay Area, but elsewhere in the country, about flash mobs hitting retail. And it's alarming and difficult for clients and staff alike in these locations. And it was bad enough, in fact, for Best Buy last week on their quarterly announcement to say, "Hey, listen, this is an issue for staff morale. It's a big, and it's basically doubled their loss line." So one of the best ways to guard inventory is to simply have the customer be the interface with the staff, and all the inventory be secured. And you pick it up with, you have confirmation of who gets what, and it's handed over, and there's less open wandering around. Paul, I'm going to throw this to you first here. What do you think? This feels a little like the QSR thing as well.
It is like that. I'll be candid. I hadn't thought of it this way, and I really appreciate this angle. Just through the pandemic, this already laid the groundwork for it, I think, and I think it's easy to have it pick up. You saw curbside pickup really take off. I became a big fan of it. A little bit like Reg was saying earlier with using Apple Pay or Google Pay. I really didn't use it before the pandemic, but now I expect it everywhere I go. And I honestly expect most retailers, if they're worth anything, they have a way to do curbside pickup now. And if that's going to overcome, let's say I'm hearing the stories of the flash mobs going in and overcome my reluctance to go in, maybe because I'm worried if something's going to happen. So that it's not for COVID, but for the flash mobs, I think this is spot on. You're going to see more of it. They won't advertise it that way necessarily, but I do think you're going to get more traction.
Right.
Oh man. You guys ever see the guy that caused traffic on the bridge to stop by carrying a bunch of phones in like a little trailer? I mean, people are so creative to undo everything that you do to put in their way. I learned this when we were dealing with hackers and scammers and everything on our social site, and it's the creativity of the human individual is there. I see it as a driver. I don't see it as the biggest driver, because it's just one of these things that I do think that people will start to track. But it's also, are you going to see how many cell phone signals that you have in your parking lot, right? To trigger a total lockdown of your store. I mean, right. The pranks on TikTok will go on forever, right? It's just, we do have to figure out a way. I do like the efficiency side of this. I do think that you do have a way to kind of secure and understand how your logistics flow. We should talk to somebody from Albertsons or Walgreens and have them come on and talk about how this kind of tech could improve their stuff. I'd love to hear their thoughts. I do think that this is one of the things that will drive people forward. I don't think it's going to be a solution. I think people are very creative in their, both in pranks and in their destructive qualities, right, to get around this type of stuff. But I do like
it. Caught us on anything to add there?
I mean, my thought is, again, this is we have to go more moving forward with this because of the COVID-19 situation. But at the same time, it's like car side and also like service side, they have to implement, they have to push forward, and people started to use. But still, I believe there's as Raj mentioned, efficiency is, we have quite a space to improve a service or efficiency for this kind of service. That's I felt, and OEM is asking can we do this way instead of a current curbside pickup system. So that's I think it's gonna be interesting in next year who will release a new a more efficient service or not.
Good. Right. Very good. Okay, guys, great. Thank you very much. And again, also on to our next prediction. So this one's close to my heart as the energy guy here today, but more EV location technology involving the need for more EV charging, and it needs to be better managed as an asset. There's various government incentives coming, depending on what you're listening to out of Washington or at state levels. EV charging infrastructure is going to get a big boost. And that's great. There's a lot out there now, but there needs to be more because it's currently lagging EV sales themselves. And it's actually becoming, some of the automakers have said it's starting to become an issue in terms of the next marginal EV sale. Like I got to make sure I have a gas station if I have a car. All the investment though has been in building it and not managing it. I recently had a chat with somebody who's selling charging maintenance packages into utilities, building the charging software. She was told bluntly, I have $18 million to roll out hardware. I have $0 for maintenance. It's like, okay, well, you have hardware, it needs to be maintained. So the mindset there is going to change. There are fragmented business models too, in terms of the types of, are you a member of this program? Can I just roll it? It's not like a gas station relationship where the electricity might be fungible, but the way you get it is not. And so the incentives for asset owners vary. So expect the EV charging, we look at it and say, okay, we're using location technology. We expect the EV charging universe to grow, but simultaneously consolidate. And maybe, here's the core, under what we'd call, quote, a non-energy name. So it's not going to be an EV charging station at a Chevron. It's also may not be the PG&E or your utility running charging because they sell electricity. It's more likely to be a retailer or a REIT or somebody else in the the asset infrastructure business managing that kind of hardware out in the real world. Reg, you and I have had lots of discussions about this. I'm gonna throw this to you first. What do you think about this?
Man, I was trying, like, aspiration, right, is there, right? I think there's aspiration, there's a lot of money there. There's going to be a lot of arguments and issues with the business model. Trevor, you understand how, like, it feels like the EV guys don't understand how the big energy guys work, right? They all talk separate conversations, right? When we get, have had these conversations with them. There's a remit, I was reading about how all the everybody's going to collaborate, all these energy companies across the US or something.
Right.
And aspiration. There's so much aspiration around this market. I do think that will be a lot of money in it, but I think people lose a lot of money in this market more than there'll be, it's going to be kind of, I think I'll go back to what I've said over and over and over again, right? There's not enough chips for the cars that they want, right? Yeah. There's not enough chips for the cars that they want. They got to go to a different form of revenue. What's the form of revenue going to be? Is it going to be finance? Maybe. Is it going to be service contracts? Maybe. Right. Digital is probably the only thing that's like there, right? Honestly, that's out there. Digital has to do with management of the EV stations. Digital has to do with engaging and being the rails there. So there's a significant amount of interest from our industry to be the rails with these groups. They'll all want to work together. They all get paid from the same, government budgets, right? So everybody's going to want to play nice here. There'll be a huge shift over the next year, or everybody will be wondering what's going to happen with the next administration if everything's going to kind of go, and they'll just wait. And they'll just pause, right? So either a bunch of stuff will be done or nothing will be done. Everyone will just hold on the money in the next year, right? Because there's not enough, or it's not really well planned yet. There needs to be more planning.
Right. It's a bit of a Wild West. It caught us up from your perspective on that. What do you think?
My thought for the kind of like a auto industry's perspective is there's, again, obviously, like EV charging like a trend will be strong much stronger than like past years, for sure. But for the OEM side is, I think like they are more focusing on the kind of battery, how to make battery, how to get like a kind of like the material for the battery, because that's like a biggest like, kind of like cost in the EV.
Right.
So of course, like they are interested in EV charging side, but it seems like OEM side is okay. Energy company, please like prepare like a charging station
Right.
for us. So it's really interesting, but it's they need to like collaborate more with like energy side. But I think for now, their OEM side is more focusing on like battery, how to
Right.
make or yeah.
They're going to let them worry about gas stations the same way
Right.
they did
Yes.
100 years ago, right?
Right.
So, got it.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, fantastic.
One last thing, Trevor. Look, there are less cars that are going to be able to be made. Targets are going to be hard to be met. You'll see investment in certification programs. You're going to see investment into e-commerce.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
Significant investment in e-commerce initially, because it's where your short-term cash is. If you had $100 million and you're an OEM and you're trying to figure where am I going to put my 100 million, you're going to put it there, not in an EV charging thing, because you're not going to be able to hit your EV.
Of course, they're two separate ecosystems that way.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's thank you very much. Let's go on. Well, this is going to be critical to the next prediction too. Jack, you want to go ahead? So, sticking with that theme, real-time parking asset management is critical. And as we start to go back outside, it's going to be something that we're going to manage a lot more effectively. As things begin to open up again post-COVID, and we've crawled out from underneath our beds clutching a bale of toilet paper where we were a year and a half ago, and now we're back out in the world. And even in still a hybrid work environment, so traffic maybe in downtowns may not be quite the same or happening at the same times. Like it's an asset management issue. At the same time, real-time analytics have a lot of cities and private parking owners, rethinking parking assets. Some cities have in the last decade have grown, 10, 20x the number of parking spaces they've had, because they typically have a rule in, new development saying, you build a building of X number of square feet, it needs to have so much parking to go with it. And in downtown cores, I think I remember seeing something about Des Moines. There were, enormous amount of, there was like 10 spaces for every car in their own traffic flows. So, think of all that real estate that's kind of sitting there and not doing anything. So they're expensive assets. Parking garages, a lot of the stuff's built at taxpayer expense. It's sitting empty. What is it doing? So we're probably going to see a 2 to 4 times pickup. The prediction is a 2 to 4 times pickup in the asset management suite of products. That's the thing when you drive into a garage, it says there's X spaces on floor 1 and X number of spaces on floor 2, etc. We're going to see that kind of technology, but location technology to help the prediction of diverting a specific car to that garage or that space is something we're going to see taking off too. So you can really manage these assets in real time, either with pricing or to use the space, have a different use for the space. Food truck or something can set up here because we know this area is typically dead. I'm going to throw this to you, Paul, because you got the short shrift on the last one. Why don't you take the lead on that?
Yeah, no, I think this is spot on. It blows my mind, frankly, that you can have that many parking spaces in excess of the cars when I've been, searching for parking myself. So I think one of the disconnects really is the focus has to be on the driver, has to be on the people using the cars, and how to make it easier for them. It's not just one app or another app that can solve the problem. I have a nuance of this prediction that it's more in the smart city space. But if you look at a city manager wanting to really get a handle on the throughput of vehicles while maintaining the tax revenue that's coming from all the curbside dining now that you have that took up what little streets parking spaces there were. I think that's the one layer that you can follow the money into it and manage it. So if they start requiring the parking garages and street parking, everything to be coordinated, I think that can tie it together. So I think you'll see a little bit of a movement on that one, but it really is it has to become a focus on making it easier for the driver. And when you have that, then the driver's going to make use of it. They're going to find it a lot easier to go with, and that's where the money's going to follow.
Right. And kind of some from the OEM perspective on that too. What do you see that this is like a little like the EV discussion, I suppose, as well, in terms of like it's not really a thing they invest in as an asset per se, but you know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so one thing is not really like a prediction about next year, but you know, in really like a near future, I think one consideration we have to think about it is not for the every service will enable for the all new vehicle. You know, existing car is huge also. So those cars should think about how to enable those like parking management, or obviously like we have they have to like, I mean, OEM has to collaborate with smartphone apps or data, but also the OEM should think about, you know, they have to, as Raj said, the OEM should think about like some kind of new like a service for the new like a sales. It's again, it's really new, really big like opportunity. So I think that's the one thing like OEM or tier one is thinking about to go in the new market.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. We have had a couple of questions come in on that, but we're going to save that for the end. We'll just get through our predictions first, because there's some things here we want to revisit just to keep things moving here. So thank you very much, guys. So on to number 7, please. All right. So the looming battle over, this is a data world, a looming battle over vehicle location data privacy. With current environment, regulating privacy, who owns real-time location data of connected cars and the people inside them? That's going to be a battle we're going to be having in this coming year quickly. So the location, more so than other real-time car data like sensor data or rather telematics information, will be a key battleground. As Paul just mentioned in the last bit there, it's like the driver is it's the humans inside the car that are the issues here. So knowing the driver and the car's location, inevitably personally identifiable information. Rules about PII usage on mobile platforms evolved over time, preventing app developers and advertisers from tracking the phone's unique IMI, unique identifier. For automotive, there'll be renewed scrutiny, we see. The winning solution will not necessarily involve just compliance with laws like GDPR or PCI, but also a way to guard access along the chain of data as well. Paul, this was actually your prediction, so maybe I'll start with you on this one so you can elaborate.
Oh yeah, happy to dive into this one. This was my prediction, and it's also coming from my experience in the mobile world, where I saw the evolution where you used to be able to track and target and make use of a phone's unique identifier, the IMEI on it. And that initially that was considered non-personal information. And of course, eventually it could be tied to a person, so it became personally identifiable information. We just keep seeing the evolution of that. Is like, how can you track a person? How can you help protect that person and protect their data? So GDPR, real watershed moment, and then California followed suit with their own laws. You're seeing other states and regions put their own laws into effect, and it's just going to keep evolving. The one thing that I see in this really is it's not just the regulations that, you know, GDPR, I can go say, hey, remove my data. It's not just that's going to really have to come into play. You're going to have to see some mechanism that allows anyone in the chain of that data to only access what they are required to access to do their job, and required to do it, able to do it by law, because that at the end will be what will help protect against the breaches that happen. So we see lots of data breaches going on today. People's personal information get out. So if you start getting an evolution of not all the data is not just going to be available all the time, then you start seeing more protection for people. But yeah, I do believe this is going to be a big debate. It's already coming. I'll throw one example in here. It's not necessarily automotive, but I think it's called Life 360. It's a big popular app among parents. It allows you to track where your kids are at, which parents, you know, like myself, get a little bit obsessive on that sometimes. It just came out that they've actually been selling all that location data to Cubic and some other data brokers. So they're doing it in a way technically that might be allowed, They might have had the opt-in, but parents are not happy with that. People, that they're not going to be happy with it. So it'll be the same with the location of your car. There has to be a good perception that you're being tracked, your location is there, but it's not Big Brother watching you. It's all to enable the services you do. Yeah.
Fantastic, guys. And can you hear me here? I might have a little bit of a technical problem due to a power outage.
Yeah, we got you.
Thank you, guys. Sorry about that. The PG&E's been hard at work. I think they heard me talking about EVs. Reg, maybe can you jump in there on this one as well? Because I think your background would be great in that.
Man, look, I've been thinking about this, and I've definitely ran into this a lot. Location technology for mobile came from 9/11. It was considered a utility, right? It was so that we could find emergency services and connect them directly in. And the early towers that Qualcomm put up, the more location you ping, the more expensive it was to scale, right? So it was like 3 cents for the first 100, and then 30 cents for if it was more than 100, right? So most location technology, when it came out, it was really hard to do. The reason why I bring that up is the utility side of location. When it's valuable to us as a customer, we're generally okay with it. When our data turns into an asset that other companies can take and can manipulate and leverage, that's when it becomes an issue. And so if you want to see what happens, I think we should look in what's going to happen with Facebook, how it's going to flow into Meta, and how they're impacted with their AR, VR stuff, because that's the rules that are going to be set for the auto industry. All the money is going to be spent there. And so we're going to have a trickle down ruling effect based on that. And so I'd be, if you're in any of these industries, I think that's the kind of decisions to watch to see what happens, because that's going to be how we all have to manage and maintain this data going forward. It's going to be from the Facebook, whatever they're about to throw at Facebook in the next 2 to 3 months.
Right. Very good. Okay, great, guys. Well, we're down to our light. We're getting into the final minutes here. We have one prediction left, and let's go to that. Thank you, Jack. So our final prediction, number 8, for 2022. Road use charges will get remade with location data. Again, this almost feels again a little bit like the parking. Current, for people who may not be aware, that current gas tax model for road maintenance is under threat by EV expansion and just generally consuming less gasoline. Road use charging sounds reasonable, especially when you leverage the location of both. It doesn't matter to the drivetrain, right? It could be combustion or EV vehicles to determine usage. So we don't have to worry about that technology choice in the future. But the implementation can be challenging. You need to make sure it doesn't turn into a virtual version of toll roads, everything becoming a toll road. So burden is going to likely stay on the vehicles currently on the road, the existing fleet, with the most equitable approach being simply leveraging vehicle location with appropriate privacy, of course, ensuring they are taxed at the same rate or charged at the same rate, regardless of the drivetrain type. Kanasan, I know we didn't chat with you on the last one, but maybe from your perspective on this, how's the OEM world looking at this type of issue?
Sorry, that was my. Sorry, I was a technical issue and I couldn't hear what you said, but sorry.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, good point. It's yeah, that's another point. I think is struggling for the auto industry, how to moving forward to EV. Again, originally one of the things out of this is who will maintain the road. The EV is using road, but they don't pay for the kind of maintenance. So that's why this can be I think happen all over the world. But I don't see any prediction for this from the OEM side yet, but I think it's like a more like a government side or
But they might be agnostic to it, and it doesn't matter because
right,
it's that's it's not their job to collect taxes. It's
right,
just their
yes.
job to have moving cars. Paul, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's this debate's going on, has been going on this last year among most of the state DOTs and internationally as well. There's been some interesting proposals like why don't we just put a some politicians have proposed putting a upfront fee that gets added to buying an electric vehicle, which kind of flies in the face of all the incentives to get people to use them. There are other ideas of maybe that it just becomes a federal or a state tax. It's just a broad tax on energy use, period. But I think, as you called out, it's going to still probably fall in the mindset of those who are on the road help pay for the road. So it'll be with the vehicles. From my perspective, being able to know, regardless of whether it's an EV or internal combustion engine, as long as you know the location of the car and you can geofence things, you can determine pretty well how you want to do road usage charging. You can determine, okay, this vehicle drove this many miles. This is what we're going to charge them. The real trick's going to be though with the government's rolling this out to where people won't perceive it as a new tax, because most of us are somewhat blind to the gas tax. It's just part of the grudge purchase of having to get fuel. So that's really going to be the tricky point. The location can enable this location of geofencing. We have that down today, but it's just going to come down to how they're going to implement it, how they're going to be equitable about it, how that is just going to work to where the average person is going to perceive it properly. Anyway, I'll let everyone else jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And Reg, quick from you as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was drawn out. There's a bucket of money. Whenever there's like a bucket of money that the government could take, they're going to want to take it. Whenever there's a bucket of money that I can save, I'm going to want to save. I think Paul is spot on with the tax charging everything. I think it all comes down to vehicle identity and being able to take and understand vehicle identity and location really well, right? What's different between this and the parking garages is the government's like, I want that data, they'll just take it. Right. Whereas if you're looking at somebody else like a parking garage, the only way that they can get identity is if they have a partner, right? They can't force fiat identity. We already give our identity every time we cross the Golden Gate Bridge, right? So, I mean, it's already in process. I do think that the issue is going to be articulation. Most of these senators don't even know how to turn on their laptops, right? Or send a text message, much less be able to understand how location and identity are securely preserved to scale, for their constituents. So it's not going to be a thing, right? I do think that we can see a significant amount of change happen once this is understood. I think Buttigieg is going to be smart. I think that he's going to get this right away, but the articulation to the people with the purse strings at Congress, so that this doesn't look like a new tax, this will be called a new tax. No matter who puts it out there, they're going to call it a new tax.
Right. That's unfortunate. Yes, that is true. Well, thank you very much, guys. This has been a great set of predictions. We have literally a minute left, and I know I wanted to get to. There were a couple of questions that are kind of around the same thing around parking. Will they see? When somebody asked, will Sheeva have its own dedicated, or will companies like Sheeva have their own dedicated parking within a parking garage, and will they be able to? How does that look in terms of how parking would get allocated in real time that way? Maybe Paul, I don't know. Do you want to?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Kind of like give some. Yeah.
I mean, there won't be necessarily Sheeva where we enable across the ecosystem. A great example that we have. So we've geofenced every street parking space in San Francisco. And we do that for a lot of the various larger metropolitan areas. And it's easy to add more and to also fence in, even in a garage. Now that allows us to, to tie into the location of the car. We can guide you to it. We can, if we're tied into a system that wants to, as we said earlier, manage all the parking assets real time, it's from where we are, we can do all that in the cloud. So we're able to identify where the car is, and we know on the map where we've geofenced where each spot is. We don't need to add a sensor in every spot. That would be just cost prohibitive to do something like that. And we're able to do all of this with just knowing the location of the car. So no new infrastructure is required to do it. It just requires tying into the API in the back end. And that's part of what is the beauty of and actually why I'm here, is just the beauty of that system. It makes it really easy to tie into and go cross-platform for. It's not just for one set of cars. It's not just for new cars. It can be for all cars, which is exciting to me. But it all comes down to the car location, and then just having in the cloud, being able to know where each space is, and that comes down to geofencing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, guys. And that brings us to the end of our time here. Again, thank you for everybody for joining us today. Thanks, guys, and panel, Reg, Paul, Kata-san, thanks for joining us today. Again, we'll have this posted within 48 hours. So if you'd like to see a replay, or if you have a colleague who didn't have the chance to be there, you'll have that resource be available. And this will be our last webinar of the year, of course, on behalf of all my colleagues here at Sheeva, and all of our guests we've had over the last year, over 2021. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Have a great holiday season, and here's looking forward to a great 2022. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Thanks, Trevor. Thanks, Reg. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.